relax your mind and body from stress. By the time you're done watching this video, you're going to have some new tactics that'll help you relax no matter the circumstance. You may be thinking, why is a futurist talking about stress? Well, being that most people are quite stressed about the future, quite a bit actually. I'm going to share two perspectives that may change the way you look at stress in your life completely, and you're going to gain tactics that you can start using right now, whether you're by yourself or you have the assistance of others. Let's get started relieving that stress. One of the things that I acknowledge is the fact that you're probably wondering why a futurist is talking about stress. And again, many people have stress around the future. So I have to be honest with you. I am a recovering type A, who's now probably one of the most zen people you'll ever meet in stressful circumstances. In fact, I'll share a quick story with you that'll kind of demonstrate where my mind is right now. Years ago, when I was a dedicated type A, rather than the recovering one that I am right now, my therapist instructed me to go meditate at a Buddhist temple, the Chung Tai Zen Center of Houston. And I learned many things in my time meditating, but one of the most important things was the power of non-attachment. What that means is you do all the things you're supposed to do. You do what you're supposed to do. If you're supposed to prepare for a thing or you have commitments, you do those things, but you're not attached to the outcomes, and you're certainly not attached to things that are outside of your control. Now, I've had many circumstances over the years that have showcased the fact that I've done a pretty good job of absorbing that lesson. But I think one of the funnier examples would be something that happened last year. I was sleeping in my bed and I started to hear these little sirens outside. I opened my eyes and I looked to the left and there's a huge window. My husband was outside of the bed and he was looking out the window and he was frozen. Now I'm seeing all these lights from a distance. I go up and I stand next to him. They were building an apartment complex across the street from my house. When I say across the street, I mean literally that. You cross the street, it was an apartment complex. The apartment complex was on fire. It looked like someone had opened the gates of hell across from my house. So I looked at my husband, who was transfixed, which happens to a lot of people when there's some type of natural disaster, something that's overwhelming. You see this with people when they're looking at hurricanes or tornadoes. I live in Houston, so I know a thing or two about tornadoes and hurricanes as well. And so I turned to him and I very calmly said, intentionally calmly, "Hey, I'm pretty sure we'll be fine. They have fire trucks and everything out there, but just in case, maybe we should get our most important documents or our prized possessions and maybe just put them in the trunks of our cars, just in case." And I said it just like that. And he said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Yeah, take your time, you're fine." I wanted to calm him down, I didn't want him running. And so he went and he started packing up things. And I went and actually packed up 2 backpacks, that was it. I got all my important documentation, a couple family heirlooms, and the other backpack, I put in my technology that I needed for my work. I put that in the trunk of my car. I was fine. Everything else could be replaced. But here's the next part that's interesting. If you looked outside at this fire that was happening across the street, the embers were flying over mine and my neighbors' homes. And so I realized there was actually a pretty decent chance that my house could catch on fire. And so I proceeded to go outside and knock on my neighbors' doors and say, "Hey, I don't know if you noticed, there's a fire outside." It was a crazy hour again of the day. It was like probably 4 o'clock in the morning. "But you might want to pack some things in your trunk," and blah, blah, blah. So after I knocked on my immediate neighbors' doors, I went back in the house. There was nothing else to do. The fire trucks were out there. I sat on the couch in my living room. I have no idea what my husband was doing this time. I sat on the couch in my living room. I crossed my legs and I meditated. I probably did that for about 10 minutes until my husband came up and asked me a question. I'm sharing this story to demonstrate the fact that you can actually relax in any environment. I actually was not stressed at all and was very certain that there was a very high probability that my house was about to burn down. Now, the firemen told everybody to stay away. They didn't tell us to evacuate yet. I know they'd tell us if it became necessary. But at that point in time, the only thing to do would be to stress, to run around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to grab everything in your home, or to just meditate for a moment so that you had a very clear mind. This is why I'm creating this video for you, because this is something that I practice and I notice in my scenario planning for the future, and as I work with some of my clients that I'm consulting with about the future, teaching them techniques for relaxing in stressful environments actually helps them think more strategically about the future, because we're helping them lessen the stress so they can see the possibilities. So that's why I'm here talking to you about this particular topic. Oh, and as a side note, my house did not burn down. Yay! Let's start with the obvious. The first thing that you want to do when it comes to lessening stress and stressful situations is to remove the stressors if you can. Now, that may or may not be easy, but it's probably more possible than you think. Sometimes stressors are individuals that we're interacting with, maybe people who have stayed a little longer than necessary. Sometimes it's our jobs. Sometimes it's family members we've allowed to move in who maybe it's time for them to leave. Again, I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do, but when possible, sometimes we can remove some of the stressors. Sometimes our diets and the way we treat our bodies contribute to our stress as well. So if we can remove the stress, the easiest thing to do would be just to simply do that. The next thing would be to identify if you actually have a problem. So oftentimes we're worried about the future and we're stressed about the future. That's very different than being aware of future possibilities. But for instance, let's say that you get some type of warning that if you don't do something in 30 days, maybe you lose your home or this thing happens over here or whatever. You don't actually have a problem until someone shows up to put you out. Now, right now you have the opportunity to fix an issue, but it's not at the level where we should have the same stress as if that negative thing has already happened. I hope that makes sense. So again, think about if you actually have a problem right now, or if you're throwing your mind into the future and worrying about a future problem that may be impending, may happen, but maybe it won't. Maybe there's something we can do in the meantime to interrupt. Quick question, in the comments, I would love for you to share, have you ever worried about something that didn't happen? Have you done that a great deal? How many times do you think you've worried about things that never even occurred? I'd love for you to just throw in a number. I know for me, hundreds. I can't even figure out a number because that's something that I used to do a great deal in the past. The next thing you want to do is interrupt stressful thought patterns. And so you've probably felt yourself at times kind of going into a cycle where you keep making things worse and worse and worse. There's a cognitive bias called catastrophizing. This is what we're doing when we see a problem and we keep going worse and worse, or we think about something that's stressful and we just expand on it. And we think about other things that make us even more stressed. We're almost addicted to being in that stress at the moment, so our body is creating more things to make us stressed because we're basically telling it, this is where I want to be. So we need to make sure that we're actually taking a look at those thought patterns and trying to balance them out and disrupt them. Now, you can disrupt those thought patterns by actually restating something differently. So maybe instead of what you're thinking, maybe it can turn out this way instead. Maybe you're acting out another scenario, maybe a past situation that's causing you stress. You imagine yourself reacting in a different way or a more positive way, or even having a more positive outcome. The important thing is to counter those thoughts. And sometimes it's just a matter of distracting yourself. Maybe there's something you can do that'll de-stress yourself. So for instance, with me, I like to puzzle. I'll give another funny example. I live in Houston. A lot of things have happened to me living in Houston, specifically in my old house. This is where all these things are happening. But I remember when Hurricane Harvey was approaching and the city was really starting to flood out really bad. Instead of being caught up in the stress of things I could not control, I did everything I needed to do to protect myself and my family, extended family around the city ahead of time, issued warnings, made sure people were okay. At this point, there was nothing more I could do. And so I put on my VR headset and I hung out around alien worlds for about a day. For about 24 hours, I was just on that headset, and that was my way of not being stressed out. I actually transported myself to somewhere different. So what kind of distractions do you have? My husband likes to play video games. He says that that de-stresses him, specifically video games where he's attacking people. I don't know. He says that's what keeps him doing in real life. He gets to have fun online. I've actually heard a few people say that too. But think about what you can do to distract yourself from your thought patterns. Maybe there's someone you can talk to that just has a way of raising your spirits. The main thing here, though, is to interrupt those stressful thought patterns. Let's talk about some of the activities that you can do yourself to help relieve stress. One of them is meditation, which I've mentioned I do daily, and in that one particular situation where there was the gates of hell opened up across the street from my house, I sat there and meditated then, and it put me in such a great position to not be panicked. You can also practice deep breathing. And there's a few different deep breathing methods. One of the things you can do, actually let's try it right now. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. We're gonna breathe into the count of 3, we're gonna hold it, and then we're gonna breathe out to the count of 3. So just follow along with me and I'll help you out with this. So you ready? We're gonna breathe in now. And you can repeat that as many times as you want. You're breathing in, you're holding, and then you're breathing out. Just that alone is a great way to de-stress. There's also something called block breathing, where you're breathing in for a count, you're holding for a count, you're breathing out for a count, you're holding that for a count. And so that just adds an extra hold into the pattern. Either one of those are great ways to relax and de-stress in the moment, just breathing deeply. Another tactic is progressive muscle relaxation. So maybe you're starting with your head and you start thinking, okay, I want to relax the muscles around here. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm stressed or kind of deep in thought, I kind of do this number. My husband comes along and rubs this from time to time because he sees me doing this. But you find yourself just intentionally just relaxing it. Think about your ears. Think about your jawline, and you literally just go down your entire body until you've released all those muscles. That's another way that we can relax. Other items include nature walks. Those can be a great way just to take a few minutes out, even if it's just a 15-minute walk that you can get in during the day. Sometimes just being connected with nature is a great way to relax. I don't know if we have any other professional nappers here. I love naps. Naps are another wonderful way to relax. Additionally, listening to music. Now, the type of music you want to listen to is not music that gets you hype or music that makes you excited, but whatever kind of music makes you calm. For some people, it's classical, it might be jazz, whatever that is, some type of instrumental, but just something that allows you to relax and let those thoughts melt away. And then the last two, maybe taking a hot bath or a shower, or maybe just escaping in VR, as I talked about earlier, putting on a virtual reality headset and then just plugging in there. These are all things that you can do by yourself without the assistance of anyone else. But let's also look at things where you can leverage someone else to help you. Massage is a great way to relax. Massage and or stretch. Those are two different things, but both of them can kind of help your muscles relax. And that could be somebody at home that's helping you with a massage or getting a professional massage. We want to make sure that we're doing whatever makes sense at our financial level at the moment. We can also participate in assisted meditation. I mentioned earlier that I was sent to study at the Chung Tai Zen Center. Well, I'll tell you, meditating with Buddhist monks was much easier than meditating by myself. I found that when they went into meditation, and I talked to other adherents as well about this, we could all just slip into it very easily. So sometimes having someone else guide you along, whether they're in person or whether you use an app like Calm, that can actually give you that guided meditation as well. Exercise helps some people relax. You have to know what works for you, maybe swimming. And the last one is maybe going to attend an event, maybe listening to a symphony or buying tickets to some other type of show that will help you relax. At the end of the day, there are many ways that we can overcome stress, and oftentimes our stressful thoughts are the result of us projecting our minds into the future so that we're anticipating problems that may or may not come to fruition. That's very different than planning for the future. Which, speaking of planning for the future, you're going to notice that in the description of this video, there's a link to download a Future Ready Playbook. I designed this playbook to help you be more strategic about planning for the future, whether we're talking about your personal goals, your career goals, or your business goals if you're a business owner. Take a moment and download it right now.